The story Sunshine Susan is written by Deepa Kiran. In this story, we will come across a girl named Susan who is discriminated because of her gender. Despite the fact that she was a very intelligent person, she was discriminated all because of the fact that she was a girl. Like most Indian parents, Susan's father as well as her mom did not believe that working outside of a home for a girl was not suitable or was not good at all. So here's a girl who faces discrimination because of her gender, and we will be going through her story and we'll come across how she'll be able to gain the confidence of other people through her actions. Susan, wake up! The shrill voice of her mother jolted Susan out of her sleep. Come and help me, and clean the meat. Dig up some potatoes from the yard. Oh no, not again, Susan thought. Another day of no college. She hated missing college. So here, Susan is asked to do some works. And she doesn't want to do that. But here's a catch. The thing is, she's supposed to go to college actually. There is no holiday and nothing like that. So he wants to go to college. But the thing is, now her mom is calling her out to help her clean the meat, dig up some potatoes as well. But she hated missing college and she's not really happy with her mom at the moment. So Susan lived with her mother and her father, her elder brother, and her grandmother. They live in a beautiful house her grandfather had once built near the river in a small village called Sabato. Her grandmother was very old and could not help with all the household works, and Susan was the only one who always helped mother. And very interestingly, she loved helping her mom and she loved doing all the works. But here we have to understand, here is this girl who really wants to study, who really wants to learn, and she doesn't want to miss her college at any cost. So to her, education is very important and she doesn't want to take it lightly. But the problem here is her mom is not really into education. I mean, for girls, that is the problem now. Well, almost all. She loved working except cooking. She loved to eat, but she did not like cooking very much. If we look at her father's profession, he was a beekeeper in a bee farm. So every fortnight, he would double up as a salesperson, and her father would go to the market to sell honey. It was not an easy job. So father would leave very early in the morning and he will go to the market by a bus. And the thing is, he will return with his friends and a big fish or something special has to be prepared. And that is the reason why Susan's mother has been calling Susan to help her dig up potatoes and also clean the meat. So on those days, whenever her father goes to town to sell this honey and comes back with his friends, Susan would have to stay back at home. She will not be able to attend college, and that's how she will stay at home. Susan's father will often take her brother Sandy along for help, and for this Susan would often complain, and that's how Susan would often complain. So the thing is, Susan's father will often take Susan's brother to the market, but not Susan. So Susan would often complain, Father, why can't I come to the market with you? Why is it always Sandy? Sandy is the brother of Susan. Why is it always Sandy and why is it not me? Why only Sandy? That's what she's complaining. Susan will ask, I've told you so many times, Susan's father, it's not a girl's job. So here is this mindset of some parents, some Indian parents. Oh, I have told you so many times, it's not a girl's job. So you see, like most Indian parents, Susan's father believed that working outside of a home in a place like bee farm or going to the market was not meant for a girl. He thought that the reason is he thought that girls were too fragile, too soft to work at a bee farm, and this was very upsetting for Susan because she was actually a very strong girl. But I'm old enough. She was going to turn 17. Her dad was reluctant to take her to the bee farm or to the market. We will see next time. That was the only thing. And her brother Sandy will smirk from behind, leaving Susan to stay at home and help mother once again. And her brother Sandy will often tease her. Haha, it's you dainty damsel. Sandy will tease her. So dainty is like someone who is very soft, someone who is weak. Dainty damsel. So a weak girl. He knew Susan hated being called dainty or weak or soft and wasn't surprised when a broken branch came flying towards him. So if you look at Susan, she was actually a very strong girl, and there's no surprise that her friends will often call her, nicknamed her Rocket. The reason is she will go for a run in the hills every day, even on days when she went to college. Susan loved learning. She loved going to college. She did not take anything for granted when it comes to education. We don't have money to educate you anymore. Her parents will had told her when she finished school. And anyway, you are a girl and need to get married soon and have a family. So again, this is a perfect example of a girl. This is a perfect example of some Indian parents. So we don't have money anymore and we cannot continue funding your education. Besides, you are a girl and it's best that you stop studying and we will look for a husband. So again, see, this is like another example of some Indian parents. They think that no matter how bright your children might be, they do not want to let them continue their studies simply because of their gender. And some parents, what they do is, although boys can't study, they will try their best. They will throw whatever money they can, even to the extent of going and borrowing some money. But here, a very smart, intelligent girl is being discriminated all because of her gender. I need to study. I need to go to college. So she was upset. She was informed by her parents that she will not be able to continue her studies. So I want to study. I need to study. I have to go to college. So look at her words. I need to study. I have to go to college. That is her determination. I really want to do something and do it soon. So Susan would often tell her stories, her problems to a tree named as the November tree, which overlooked her window. So she loved flowering trees, especially this one, which shed all its leaves in autumn and white flowers, which will then burst forth its naked branches. Susan was spellbound by this miracle of nature. It never failed to amaze her each time she saw it. A huge tree without any leaves and with bright white blossoms. So this tree was a dear friend to her, and she would share all her stories with it. It had always given a patient hearing and sometimes responded, just like on that day. So as she sat under the tree pondering, a blossom fell on her lap, and at that instant a brainwave struck her. She was happy, she was excited. She decided all of a sudden, I will work in a bee farm. And she asked her that, Dad, I want to do beekeeping. I'll work 2 hours every day. With the wages, I'll pay my school fees. Daddy, please let me join the bee farm. Please help me go to college. So here, this is a girl who is begging her father to let her work and fund money for her education. It's something so really encouraging and something which we can all learn from. So instead of the parents forcing to study, here is a girl who is begging her parents to let her work, and on top of that, so that she can work and earn money for herself for her education. We'll see next time. Now go back and don't make a scene. Her father told her, just go back and don't create any drama. So at that moment, there was this lady called Mrs. Andrew, the owner of the bee farm, who was inspecting the bee farm, and she noticed the what was going on and came to find out what the matter was. After she found out that Susan was begging her father to let her study, she was so surprised and actually happy for Susan, and she asked Susan's father to um, let Susan study and not to stop her. You must go to college, Susan. You can begin work from tomorrow. You are now an employee of the farm. So to Susan's father, she said, teach your daughter well. Mark my words. You are lucky to have a child who is driven by such energy and passion. So here's this. Beekeeping was a tough job, but slowly and gradually she was able to understand them, and at last she produced this bottle of honey which was bottled by her, which was prepared by her. She glued a square piece of paper on the bottle and wrote sunshine. Everyone tasted it, and her grandma was so happy with her work, and her grandma was so overcome with pride. I mean, really happy for her granddaughter. It was wonderful, and she smiled. A toothless smile beamed across the wrinkled face. She was so happy. Wonderful! I'm so proud of you, my dear. Come and taste some of this right away. I tell you, you must, Grandma shouted. It was. They all agreed that it was a very special honey, and the special ingredient was, of course, Susan. But even now, neighbors will often tease her. They will whisper at the back, Girls have to stay at home and keep the family together, her neighbors would often say. Of what use is all this learning? Better get used to being home. Wonder why your parents are still educating you. So again here, all these discouraging words spoken by her neighbors, all because of the fact that she is a girl. However, she could not do anything, and the best response she could give was none, absolutely nothing. She just remained silent, and she was just determined to show them through her works and through her education. And she was able to do so because of a wonderful story her grandmother told her. And one of the stories that Susan liked to hear from all the stories which her grandmother had told her was the frogs that raised up a castle. So there was this story which Susan loved so much, and it was entitled The Frogs That Raised Up a Castle. So there was once a race. So many frogs came together and decided to have a race, but again there were so many animals around who were not who were making fun of them, who were skeptical. The onlookers questioned when they saw the frogs begin the race, but the frogs decided to, to conduct the race anyway. So they started the race. They kept hopping up and up, though the going got tougher and tougher. So it was becoming tougher. Come back, return to safety. Don't risk falling off. You'll break your legs. The frogs could hear the shouts from, the onlookers looking at them. So one by one, they all gave up and returned. However, there was one frog who was not at all willing to give up. So there was this frog who did not listen, who did not give up, and it kept hopping and hopping. When this frog reached the top, everyone cheered and applauded. and the bird flew up and offered to fly him down in honor of his achieving such an impossible goal. Congratulations, the bird said. You must share with us the secret of your not giving up despite all the warnings from the people below. Eh? The frog turned and just stared at them. It was he was deaf. He had not heard a single word of discouragement, and that was the reason why he was able to raise up the castle. So here the example is we should not pay attention to people who discourage us or who try to bring us down. And this was the lesson Susan learned from his sorry and this was the lesson Susan learned from her grandmother. So do not listen to the words of those who try to pull you down. So this was the lesson, and Susan learned it. She didn't listen when people scolded her for learning to drive a motorbike. She also learned how to drive a motorbike. It's raining heavily now. You might hear the rain, but we'll just go on. If we look at it, if when we see a girl riding a motorbike, it's kind of a bit odd. Why? Because it's a girl, so something like that. Her uncle had given her a bike as a gift, so she would often travel easily to college and work. At first, it was not easy, but she learned it. One day, she heard a shout. There was this. She heard something like an someone in pain. It was the scream of her mother from the garden. Susan rushed out in time and saw a snake slithering away. Her mother was being bitten by a snake. The snake had bitten her, and the nearest hospital was 6 kilometers away. And the only bus to town was gone, and so were father and Sandy. So there's no one at home, and her grandmother was too old. Sandy and father were in the market. There's nothing. Grandmother was crying, wailing, "Oh Lord, do something." Susan was also panicking, but she tried to calm down. "Come on, Susan, think," she was trying to encourage herself. Then all of a sudden she tied her mother with a rope onto the bike. She seated her mother. After some struggle, Grandma and Susan managed to sit mother on the bike. So while Grandma held mother tightly, Susan got onto the bike, and together they tied her to Susan with the rope, because now her mother is too weak to even hold on onto the bike. So Susan, along with her grandmother, they tied her to herself, and Susan started the bike and drove with her mother to the hospital. In the hospital, her mother was given the anti-venom injection in time, and very interestingly, because of Susan's swift action, she was saved. Her mother was saved. So that was, the work of Susan's quick thinking. "Sunshine girl," everyone said, and Susan smiled. For today she had understood where her shine came from. It came from the courage to believe in herself and to follow her heart. So this never giving up attitude. Susan was never cowed down, or Susan was never discouraged by anyone. She had a goal. Her goal was to learn and study, go to college, and she did that. Sometimes Susan was not happy to help mother in some days because she was really serious about her studies and hated missing college. She loved helping her mother, but she was not so happy on the day when she was supposed to go to college. So you see, it's not like she doesn't want to help, but the thing is, She wants to go to college and learn. That's the thing. What was the one chore that Susan disliked doing? So Susan was the one who always helped mother with the chore, and she loved doing all of it except cooking. What made Susan upset about her father's attitude? So, like most Indian parents, Susan's father believed that working outside of a home in a place like bee farm was not meant for a girl. He thought that girls were too weak to work at a bee farm. This was something which really upset Susan about her father's attitude. If we look at Sandy, her brother, Sandy was also not at all helpful. All he would do was often tease her. So he would often tease Susan, reminding her that beekeeping and going to the market was a guy thing. And he would often call her a dainty damsel, a weak girl. Susan was so against that because she was not weak and she did not like being called weak by others. However, Susan's friends knew what kind of a person she was. They called Susan a rocket because she was very energetic and strong. She would go for a run in the hills every day, even on days when she had to go to college. And another thing which we should keep in mind is the November 3. The November 3 was Susan's dear friend. Please do not forget that. It played an important role in Susan's life. Why? Because this November 3 always gave a patient hearing to whatever Susan shared with it. What was so special about Susan's wish to go to college? So here Susan's wish to go to college was special because she wanted to learn, simple as that. She loved learning and she knew that education was something she needed to have in order to make something for herself. Susan's wish to go to college shows that she is a strong and determined individual. She does not hold on to the old tradition of staying at home and taking care of her family, but rather wants to rise above that and be independent. It shows her strong will to prove herself and to be responsible for herself instead of depending on others. However, she had to fight a lot of criticisms and discouragements to follow her dreams. Her parents did not want to send her for further studies. She was even willing to work to fund her education, but her father did not allow her to work, saying it was not a girl's work. Even the neighbors whispered and discouraged her, saying that instead of working or studying, she should stay at home and learn to take care of her family. But in spite of all this, she never gave up and learned to believe in herself. She drew inspiration from the story and the moral of the story her grandmother told her, and to believe in herself and to work hard and ignore those who discouraged her. And in the end, she was able to accomplish her dreams.